The hammer struck iron. Elias wiped sweat from his brow and watched sparks scatter across the dirt floor. Each blow echoed through his small forge at the edge of coalwood, a sound that had marked time in this place for 30 years. His father's sound before that. His grandfather's before that. The metal glowed orange-red under his practiced hand. Elias paused, studying the curve forming beneath his hammer. Something in the metal's glow held him transfixed. Memories, maybe. Or ghosts. A train whistle cut through the evening air. The 8:15 from Millerton, right on schedule. It would stop for 12 minutes, take on water, maybe drop off a passenger or two, then continue east toward places Elias had never seen. He returned to his work. The chains taking shape before him were destined for the jailhouse. Sheriff Tanner had been specific about their requirements. Strong enough to hold a desperate man. Light enough not to be cruel. Elias understood metal better than he understood people. Metal was honest. It told you what it was capable of. It didn't hide things. Coalwood sat in a narrow valley between pine-covered hills, a town built on timber and the promise of coal that never quite delivered. Main Street ran straight as a ruler for 6 blocks before surrendering to wilderness again. The buildings leaned into each other like old men sharing secrets, the general store, Widow Parker's boarding house, the saloon, and at the far end, the jailhouse with its fresh coat of whitewash. Elias's forge stood apart, just past the cemetery. Folks said it was an odd place for a business, but Elias liked the quiet. The dead made better neighbors than the living. His home attached to the back of the forge, 2 rooms with a small kitchen and a bedroom where he slept alone. On the mantel sat a photograph in an ornate frame he'd traded 3 months' work for. Margaret, his wife, 5 years dead now. Her eyes followed him around the room. The forge walls held the tools of his trade, hammers of various sizes, tongs, punches, and chisels. His father's tools mingled with his own, impossible to tell apart after so many years. The scent of coal smoke had soaked into the wooden beams, into his clothes, his skin. Elias was 53, though most guessed older. His hands were maps of scars and calluses. His beard, once brown, had gone gray, then white. He spoke when necessary, which wasn't often. The townspeople respected his work but kept their distance. Something about his eyes made them uncomfortable, like he could see things they couldn't. Margaret had been different. She'd filled the silence with stories and laughter. She'd planted flowers outside the forge, splashes of color against the soot-stained walls. After the fever took her, the flowers withered. Elias hadn't planted new ones. The evening shadows lengthened as Elias quenched the metal in water. Steamist like a warning. Tomorrow he would continue. The chains weren't finished yet. Sheriff Tanner arrived just after sunset 3 days later. His boots left dusty prints on the forge floor. He removed his hat, ran a hand through thinning hair. Evening, Elias. Elias nodded, setting aside his hammer. How's the work coming along? Tanner asked, eyes scanning the forge. Nearly done. Elias gestured to the workbench where the chains lay cooling. Tanner stepped closer, examining the craftsmanship. Fine work, as always. They'll be ready tomorrow. Tanner nodded, then hesitated. Something in his posture changed. This prisoner, he's not like the usual drunks and troublemakers. Elias waited. Name's Daniel Corley. Came in on the train 4 days ago. Got into trouble almost immediately. Tanner's fingers tapped against his leg. He's been causing problems in the cell. Strong as an ox. Broke the old restraints like they were made of paper. These won't break, Elias said. Good. Tanner reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded paper. His details. For the record book. Elias took the paper but didn't unfold it. I'll need them by noon tomorrow, Tanner said, replacing his hat. Town council's coming to inspect the jail. Want to show we're prepared for any situation. After Tanner left, Elias unfolded the paper. Daniel Corley, age 30. Former soldier. Charged with assault and attempted robbery of the Millerton Bank. Dangerous. Elias stared at the name. Something about it tugged at his memory, but he couldn't place it. He set the paper aside and returned to his work. That night, sleep eluded him. He lay awake, listening to the wind in the pines. The name Corley kept repeating in his mind. When he finally drifted off, his dreams were filled with glowing metal and the sound of chains. Morning brought no clarity. Elias worked through breakfast, shaping the final links. Each strike of the hammer sent sparks flying. He watched them dance and die, like brief, bright lives. As he worked, his mind wandered to the prisoner. What drove a man to such desperation? Elias had seen men broken by war, by loss, by the slow erosion of hope. He wondered which had broken Daniel Corley. The chains took form beneath his hands. Strong, Yes, but not cruel. Elias had added small refinements, padding where the metal would touch skin, joints that wouldn't pinch. Small mercies invisible to anyone but the wearer. Midday approached. Elias cleaned the chains, oiled the locks. The work was done, but something held him back from taking them to the jail. He found himself staring at Margaret's photograph. "What would you do?" he asked the silent image. Margaret had always seen the good in people, even when Elias couldn't, even when there seemed to be none to find. He remembered her tending to a young drifter who'd collapsed outside their door one winter night. The man had stolen food from the general store. The town wanted him jailed. Margaret had nursed him back to health instead. "Judge not," she'd told Elias, "lest you be judged." Elias packed the chains carefully in burlap. The weight of them felt significant in his arms as he walked toward town. People nodded as he passed. Mrs. Holloway sweeping her porch. Old Jenkins smoking his pipe outside the barber shop. Normal day in Colwood. The jailhouse sat square and solid at the end of Main Street. As Elias approached, he noticed a small crowd gathered outside. Voices raised in anger. "Hang him and be done with it. Can't trust his kind. Think of the children." Sheriff Tanner stood on the jailhouse steps, hands raised for calm. "Now, folks, we have laws. The circuit judge will be here next week. Until then, Daniel Corley stays in my jail." Elias skirted the crowd, entering through the side door. The jail's interior was cool and dim after the bright sunshine. 2 cells lined the back wall. In the first sat a man Elias recognized, Tom Wilkins, sleeping off another drunk night. The second cell held Daniel Corley. Elias stopped, the chain suddenly heavy in his arms. The prisoner sat on the edge of the narrow cot, head bowed. He was younger than Elias expected. His clothes were dusty but of good quality. His hands, resting on his knees, were strong but uncalloused. Not a laborer's hands. When Corley looked up, Elias felt a jolt of recognition. Not the face. He'd never seen the man before. But something in the eyes. A familiar pain. "Brought the chains," Elias said to Deputy Morris, who sat at the desk near the door. "About time," Morris said, rising. "Sheriff's been waiting." Tanner entered from outside, closing the door on the angry voices. "Good, you're here." He took the bundle from Elias. "Let's get these on him before the council arrives." Corley watched silently as Tanner unwrapped the chains. No fear in his eyes. No anger either. Just a deep, resigned sadness. "Stand up," Tanner ordered. Corley obeyed, rising slowly. He was tall, broad-shouldered. The kind of man who would be imposing if he weren't so clearly defeated. "These are special made," Tanner said, fitting the restraints around Corley's wrists. "You won't break these." "I won't try," Corley said. His voice was soft, educated. Elias found himself lingering, watching as Tanner secured the chains. He built them well. They would hold. But something about seeing them on the man's wrists made his stomach tighten. "That'll do," Tanner said, stepping back. "Thank you, Elias. Town council will be pleased." Elias nodded, but his eyes remained on Corley. The prisoner met his gaze briefly, then looked away. Outside, the crowd had dispersed somewhat. Elias walked back toward his forge, but his steps were slow. The image of Corley in chains, his chains, stayed with him. That night, Elias dreamed of Margaret. She stood in the doorway of the forge, backlit by sunlight, flowers in her hands. "There's always more to the story," she said. "You taught me that." He woke before dawn, Margaret's words echoing in his mind. He dressed quickly and walked to town while stars still dotted the sky. The jailhouse was quiet. Deputy Morris dozed at the desk, keys hanging on the wall behind him. Elias cleared his throat. Morris startled awake. "Elias? What are you doing here so early?" "Came to check the chains," Elias said. "Make sure they're working properly." Morris yawned. "They're fine. Prisoner hasn't made a sound all night. Still, I should look. My reputation." Morris hesitated, then shrugged. "Suit yourself." He took the keys and led Elias to Corley's cell. The prisoner lay on the cot, chains glinting in the dim light. He opened his eyes as they approached. "Blacksmith wants to check his handiwork," Morris said. "Sit up." Corley complied. Morris unlocked the cell, letting Elias in. "5 minutes," he said, then returned to his desk. Elias knelt before Corley, examining the chains. They were intact, working as designed. But up close, he could see red marks where the metal had rubbed against skin. "I can adjust these," Elias said quietly. "Make them more comfortable." Corley studied him. "Why would you do that?" Elias didn't answer immediately. He wasn't sure himself. No need for unnecessary suffering. A ghost of a smile touched Corley's lips. "That's not the prevailing opinion in this town." "I'm not the town." Silence stretched between them. Elias made small adjustments to the restraints, loosening where they pinched. They say you tried to rob a bank, Elias said finally. Corley's eyes flickered. That's what they say. Did you? Does it matter? Elias considered this. Might. To some. Corley looked away. I needed money. Quickly. Most thieves do. It wasn't for me. Corley's voice dropped lower. My daughter. She's sick. Doctors in Millerton said they couldn't help. Said there's a specialist in the city who might. But. He shook his head. Cost more than I could earn in 3 years. Elias felt something shift inside him. Your daughter. How old? 6. Corley's chains clinked as he moved. Her name is Sarah. She's with my sister now. And her mother? Died birthing her. The words came out flat, worn smooth by repetition. Elias thought of Margaret. They'd wanted children. Had tried for years. The fever had taken that hope along with her life. I didn't even make it inside the bank, Corley continued. Lost my nerve. Was walking away when the guard grabbed me. We struggled. His gun went off. He looked down at his hands. No one was hurt, but here I am. Morris's boots scuffed the floor as he approached. Time's up, Elias. Elias stood. The chains looked small now, inadequate to the weight they were asked to bear. Thank you, Corley said softly. Elias nodded and left the cell. Outside, the sun was rising, painting Colwood in golden light. The town was waking, chimney smoke rising, shopkeepers sweeping storefronts. Normal day. Except nothing felt normal anymore. Elias walked to the telegraph office as soon as it opened. He sent 2 messages, one to the bank in Millerton, one to the doctor Corley had mentioned. Then he waited. Responses came the next day. The bank confirmed an incident matching Corley's story. The doctor's reply was longer. Yes, he knew of Sarah Corley. Yes, her condition was serious but treatable. Yes, the treatment was expensive. No, it couldn't wait much longer. Elias folded the telegrams carefully and placed them in his pocket. That evening, he visited the jail again. Sheriff Tanner was there, reviewing paperwork. He looked up in surprise. Twice in 2 days, Elias. People will talk. Need to speak with you, Elias said. About Corley. Tanner's expression hardened. What about him? Elias placed the telegrams on the desk. His story checks out. Tanner read them slowly, frowning. Doesn't change what he did. He didn't actually rob anyone. Attempted robbery is still a crime. So is assaulting a guard. His daughter is dying. Tanner sighed, removing his hat. Look, Elias, I sympathize. I do. But the law is the law. Circuit judge will be here in 4 days. Let him sort it out. 4 days might be too late for the girl. That's not my problem. Tanner's voice hardened. And it's not yours either. You made the chains. Job's done. Elias stood still, words building inside him like pressure in a sealed vessel. There's always more to the story, he said finally, echoing Margaret's words. Maybe so, Tanner replied. But my job is to uphold the law, not interpret it. Elias left without another word. The night air felt thick, oppressive. He walked past his forge, continuing to the cemetery. Margaret's grave was simple, a stone marker with her name and dates. Elias knelt beside it. What would you do? He asked again. The stars offered no answer, but Elias didn't need one. He already knew. Dawn found him at his forge, fire already blazing. He worked with focused intensity, crafting a small, intricate key. By mid-morning, it was finished, an exact replica of the jail cell key. Elias waited until nightfall. The town grew quiet, lights winking out one by one. He moved through the shadows, a ghost among buildings he'd known his entire life. The jailhouse was dark except for a single lamp in the front window. Elias circled to the back, where a small window looked into the cells. He tapped gently on the glass. Corley appeared, chains glinting as he moved. Elias held up the key, then pointed to the back door. Understanding dawned in Corley's eyes. The lock on the back door was simple, designed to keep drunks out, not prisoners in. Elias opened it silently and slipped inside. The cells were unguarded at night. Colwood rarely needed constant supervision of its prisoners. Corley waited at the bars. Why? He whispered. Elias inserted the key into the lock. For Sarah. The lock turned smoothly. The cell door opened without a sound. Elias produced another key, this one for the chains. As the restraints fell away, Corley rubbed his wrists. I don't know how to thank you. Don't, Elias said. Just go. Train comes through at midnight. Doesn't usually stop, but it slows on the curve past the water tower. You can jump it there. He handed Corley a small pouch. It's not much. Enough for a doctor's visit, maybe. Corley's eyes widened. I can't take your money. It's not for you, Elias said. It's for Sarah. Corley's hand closed around the pouch. They'll know you helped me. Probably. They'll put you in here instead. Elias shrugged. Maybe. Why risk it? You don't even know me. Elias thought of Margaret, of chances never taken, of a life lived in the shadows of what might have been. Go, he said simply, before someone comes. Corley hesitated, then extended his hand. Elias took it. A moment of connection between strangers bound by something neither could name. Then Corley was gone, a shadow melting into the night. Elias returned to his forge. He built up the fire, watching sparks rise toward the rafters. Then he took the chains, the ones he'd crafted with such care, and placed them in the flames. Metal that had bound was now being unmade. He worked through the night, hammer ringing against the anvil. By morning, the chains were gone, transformed into simple tools, a trowel, a hinge, a latch. Things that opened rather than closed. Things that built rather than confined. Sheriff Tanner arrived as the sun crested the hills. His face was thunderous. You know why I'm here. Elias nodded. Prisoner escaped last night. Lock wasn't broken. Cell keys missing. Tanner's eyes narrowed. And those chains you made? Gone too. Elias said nothing. Only two people had access to those keys, Elias. Me and Deputy Morris. And only one person knew how those chains were made. Elias met his gaze steadily. Why? Tanner demanded. Why risk everything for a criminal you don't even know? Elias looked toward Margaret's photograph. Some chains you can see, he said quietly. Others you can't. Tanner's hand moved to his gun. I ought to arrest you right now. You probably should. But Tanner didn't draw his weapon. Instead, he removed his hat, ran a hand through his hair, the same gesture he'd made days earlier in this same spot. His daughter, Tanner said finally. Is she really sick? Elias nodded toward the telegram still in his pocket. Dying without treatment. Tanner was silent for a long moment. Mayan was 6 when the fever took her, he said finally. Nothing I could do. No money that could save her. The admission hung in the air between them. Circuit judge comes tomorrow, Tanner said. He'll want answers. I'll give them to him. Tanner replaced his hat. Train derailed 20 miles east last night. Caused quite a commotion. Passengers scattered. Take days to sort out who was where. He moved toward the door. Might be hard to track one man in all that confusion. Elias watched him go, understanding the gift he'd been given. That evening, he sat outside his forge as the sun set behind the hills. The town of Colwood spread before him, unchanged yet somehow different. Or perhaps he was the one who had changed. A train whistle sounded in the distance, not the 8:15 from Millerton, but a different train. Heading east, toward the city, toward help for his sick child. Elias closed his eyes and listened as the sound faded. He imagined Corley and his daughter reunited. Imagined the chains of fear and desperation falling away. Imagined sparks rising from a forge somewhere far away, spelling out a different kind of future. When he opened his eyes again, stars had appeared overhead. The same stars that had witnessed every choice, every moment of his life. The same stars that would continue long after he was gone. Elias rose and went inside. On the mantel, Margaret's photograph caught the lamplight. He touched the frame gently. You were right, he said to her silent image. There's always more to the story. He moved to his workbench where the tools he'd made from the chains lay waiting. Tomorrow he would deliver them to families in town, small gifts with no explanation. Tomorrow he would face whatever consequences came. But tonight, in the quiet of his forge, Elias felt lighter than he had in years. As if chains he hadn't known he carried had finally fallen away.